Back to Bub Podcast. I'm Bub, and I'm joined by Justin, our friend who, in our community, knows how to meditate for real. It's had life-changing impacts on his life, and he's going to give us an intro how he got into it and maybe some advice for beginners. So, first things first, Justin, introduction to meditation. What initially drew you in?
Well, I would say that my whole life, I've always been a bit of an anxious person, nervous in school, worried about a lot of things. Um, since I've spent most of my life sitting on a chair as I'm a software developer, I've
Yeah,
had a lot of back pain. Um, I'm talking like for 20 plus years. But I guess more specifically, about 3 or 4 years ago, I actually had a bit of a prostate attack. That's what I like. That's what I call it. And I was literally just laying in bed, and there was things that was kind of leading up to this happening, but
yeah.
it just one night, it almost felt like something burst down there. I went to the washroom. My whole body was like in a sort of like a
Oh boy.
panic. I had like basically a panic attack. My legs were gyrating. I remember I couldn't stop like doing this. My wife, she was trying to calm me down. She drove me to the hospital. I had a bunch of tests done, and then I even did some tests later on. Like basically, everything ended up where it was nothing physical. There was nothing physically wrong with me.
Yeah,
Uh, it took me a while to figure out that it was a lot of just mental worry about a lot of things. I mean, I could get into the specifics, what led specifically to the prostate attack, but I can
right.
tell you that it was that attack that essentially made me realize that I have to start sort of changing my mindset, because I've always just been this guy that just worried about a lot of things, worried about pain, worried about getting hurt, always thought of my body as being like this piece of shit. I'll say,
Oh boy.
uh, you know, definitely was always worried about getting older. Like I'm only going to get worse. I mean, I'm almost going to have like a curved back. I'm going to be one of those people you see on the street sometimes. They walk with that huge hunchback. People
Yeah,
already
you're
call me
making me want to
hunchback.
stretch right now from that. So
Yeah.
it sounds like it was a bunch of physical, mental strain, maybe overthinking it, maybe even you're saying it stems back from childhood. So then, like, maybe let's jump into the personal benefits or even challenges. Like, what are some of the biggest benefits you've noticed since you started meditating? Like, has it? Can you just? For me, like off screen, we've talked about you becoming like a super saiyan in terms of like meditation, right? So I'm sure there's levels to it, but what are those benefits that you've experienced at these levels?
Uh, well, again, that prostate thing was sort of the beginning of high anxiety. For a year after that, I was not even able to basically even sleep well. Like if I even tried to sleep on my stomach, which was the original, uh, that was the position I was in when I had that prostate attack. Your mind remembers things, right? So it's almost as if every time I tried to again go on my stomach, it's like it was already thinking, oh, I would already start to feel something happen down there near the prostate. It felt like it was going to do that exploding feeling again. So I would fear it. I would literally fear it. So uh, that again, like that was just sort of the start of a lot of anxiety. I started getting anxiety for everything, like almost like we went out for lunch one day. I don't know if you remember that. We just went out for lunch, and I think I told you, I said,
Yeah,
like I was not even comfortable even having lunch with a friend. It was almost like I'm worried about that I'm even in this restaurant. I'm worried that I'm like, I don't, this, my friend is probably, he can tell that I have a ton of anxiety. Like I'm starting to worry about what other people are starting to think about me and stuff like
uh,
that. And then like everything just becomes a negative thought, like stuff that should be just neutral or should be positive. Everything just becomes negative and worrisome, right? So that was about a good year of that. And I had a bunch of doctor appointments. I even went on I went on the anxiety medication for about 2 months. That didn't really help. I would, maybe it started helping a little bit, but it wasn't helping in like a way that I wanted. I real like Luckily, I somehow found meditation, because it took me a while. Like I was watching a bunch of TikTok videos. I was doing a lot of reading up, even YouTube videos as well, just trying to figure out like what can I do to fix this. I mean, at some point, I think I realized it's something wrong with my mind. Luckily, that's what I realized. And then the meditation, when I started doing that, the first thing I was able to kind of get rid of was all that anxiety. Like when I first accomplished at least being able to sleep again, normally, which took me about 4 to 6 months. It took me about 4 to 6 months to get to that point.
Yeah.
But when I realized it was just like a bunch of negative thoughts, fears, and all that stuff that led to that. But once I accomplished that, I started realizing, geez, the 20 years of back pain that I would get, just sitting on a chair while I'm working on the computer and all that stuff, is that also caused by just my mind? Like I thought there was something wrong with my spine. I thought literally physically, in fact, I had MRIs done. They told me, oh, one of your discs are herniated and stuff like that. They tell you all these things. But it turns out, even though you get these medical reports from doctors that give you this indication there's physically something wrong, it turns out that it's a lot of that is just due to like your mindset. You know what I mean? Because after, again, getting rid of the prostate issue and getting rid of a lot of my anxieties, then I started getting rid of the whole idea of pain in my body. So like the pain I would have in my back. It's funny, like actually how it works. Like I went from like not being able to sit for 5 minutes without sharp pains going up and down my spine, into my neck, down into my legs. I started to get that sciatica feeling. Now I could probably sit here for 2-3 hours without even like thinking about pain. Like literally I could easily do that. And it's funny because you start off by, okay, now I'm the kind of person that I can sit on a chair for, a long time without having any kind of pain. But then fun enough, I would find that, okay, well, maybe after 2 hours I would get some pain. And then I realized that's another thought, because that's something I always dealt with as well. Like, even when I started using the computer, like in my early 20s or whatever, I was able to sit there a pretty long time as, in that young age. But, eventually you sit there for 2 hours, you do start to get some pain. And that's this. So there's a thought there that says, okay, well, once time is almost like not my friend. So once I sit here for too long, my back starts to ache, my back starts to hurt, I get sharp pains. So I realized like there's just all these subconscious thoughts that you essentially start making conclusions on over the years of your experiences. You almost have to negate them. You have to kind of find a way to stomp those negative thoughts out. So I think I might have told you, I put this whole thing in my mind of this ideal body. For me, ideal was like, I defined in my mind what ideal was. Ideal was, when I say I have an ideal body, that's a body that's relaxed. Like it's calm. And when I say that, that usually means no anxiety as well. Like a calm body is something that there could be something happening around you that usually in the past might have tensed you up, or something like that. Now it doesn't. Now I'm just relaxed almost to anything that might happen around me. An ideal body also is it's a strong body. A strong body, again, for me, is I could sit here for hours now with a strong back. When I think, I have a strong body, that means every part of my body, the muscles, the bones, all of them are strong. So I imagine my spine as being strong. The muscles that support my spine, they're all strong. They're in place. Everything's where it should be. Also, ideal body is flexible, because that's always a problem. I mean, people laugh at me. I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'2" or 6. Well, now I'm almost 6'4". I noticed I happen to I'm taller now all of a sudden, because before I was more hunchback. Now I might have grown like an inch or two just from the meditation, believe it or not.
So what you're saying is this meditation technique, I would call it the ideal body or the ideal mind, is a meditation technique that you've kind of crafted. And through your meditation, not only have you alleviated yourself from the mind, but also like the physical, or the two are connected in some way, that you feel stronger, like you said, and that you've able to like remove the hunch and like grow an inch or two. Like you're saying, you went from 6'2" to 6'4". So that all stemmed from your mind to your body? Or can you describe like advice for beginners? Like, how should we think about this in terms of giving meditation a shot? Is it like a connection you're making here first to here? Or walk us through, like, if I wanted to go from like 6 foot to 6'2", is that just something I've been thinking of? Or give me the walkthrough of like you teaching this to your son, or like a good friend of yours that's also going through some sort of anxiety that's holding them back in the physical and mind.
Yeah, well, one thing I'll just clear up right away is I never once meditated on wanting to be taller. So like I said, I want to be 6'4". That was just an effect of, I was a hunchback kind of person. Literally, you could see my neck before was kind of like this. Now I just, in fact, it's not one of my direct meditations, but just because I started feeling, I said, oh, my posture's better. Like I would have told myself for pretty much the last 20 years, or let's just say before 3 years ago, before I started doing the meditation, I would have always said, oh, my posture sucks. My posture is horrible. You repeat these thoughts in your head over and over again, they just become true to you. They're your truth, your personal truth. So that's the thing you have to be careful. Everyone has to be careful with is these negative thoughts that you might have about your body, because they essentially become true. People called me hunchback, and I literally look like a hunchback. If I ever tried to reach my toes, which I never was able to do before, people saw my back. It literally looked like this round, almost like was it that guy, the Hunchback of Notre Dame?
Yeah.
My back actually looked like that. So you're asking how do you kind of start on this path?
Right.
Well, remember, your mind works on truths. So you can't just start meditation and say right away, oh, I don't have a hunchback anymore, because you might try to convince yourself of that, but you would have to be a pretty, damn good meditator to somehow erase 20 years of you telling yourself that you have a hunchback, and you could just somehow convince yourself right there that you do, or that you have a good back, and that you don't have a hunchback anymore. So what you have to do is you have to play with the real truth. The real truth to me when I started meditation is that I'm making the decision that not today, it's not right now, but someday in the future, I'm going to have a good back. Like I was able to, for some reason, something became clear to me that I was able to make these changes. Once I believed in that much, because, there's a bunch of people out there, usually like the older generation, like people like my mom and even my grandma, that, you tell them, oh, that you're able to change things with your mind. They don't believe it. So I think the first step for me was realizing that you can actually change things with your mind. Like just by changing your mindset, you could change quite a bit about your body.
Right.
I think that happened to me once I started feeling like that some of these negative thoughts, I was almost able to feel like the way that negative thought actually put like a negative sort of energy over my body. I was able to feel that. So once I at least believed that I was capable of changes, I was then able to see myself in a future where I didn't have a hunchback, where again, like I had this ideal body, flexible, strong, relaxed, all these. So because I was able to see that, and in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's going to happen. And I really did believe it. That already starts to make the changes. And then, then it almost becomes this great sort of game that you could, like I might have told you, and I tell some people, like, for me, the meditation over the past 2 years has been almost like the best video game I've ever played in my life. Like it's honestly the best. Like just when you close your eyes and you sort of like just start thinking about how all of your past experiences they have put this almost sort of negative energy on different parts of your body. Again, even like for me, the prostate, even today, 2 years later, I don't have any trouble sleeping. I don't worry about my prostate, but if I ever still today, actually, like I don't do meditations about the prostate anymore, but if I were to say like, oh, my prostate's really healthy. I mean, I've been believing that now for the past year and a half or 2 years. But when I tell myself that yet again, I still feel changes down there. It's almost like it's still not done. It's this weird thing where as long as I've been doing this and I feel ideal, like I feel my body is relaxed. I feel like it's strong. I feel like it's flexible. I feel like I don't have any anxiety. I feel healthy, all these great things I feel now. But yet when I still repeat it over and over again, it's like it still causes changes, which tells me like, man, the amount of negative thought that I actually might have done during those like the year or two there with that anxiety, like I really repeated negativity to myself so much because I know that because I've repeated positivity to myself over the last 2 years, and it seems like I still haven't stomped out that negativity, which
Right.
So that, again, I was a negative person before 2 years ago. I was very that's the thing I've switched more than anything. I'm so much more positive about my body. And that's one of my, I find this thought comes to me naturally. I'm a guy now that thinks very positive thoughts about my body. And when you say that to yourself and you believe it, which I definitely believe that now, that makes even more changes. Again, you're just removing just sort of negative things that you've told yourself over years and years.
So you're purging and flushing out everything that negatively was impacting over the last 30 years. Like, so these are habits and routines that you've been practicing lately. Do you have anything for like someone listening to this or a friend, like where they can start? Because I'm sure you didn't stumble upon meditation by accident, and then you just learned it overnight. It probably took a bunch of books and videos or someone to guide you. Was there anything that like myself or anyone else could get started on to maybe, or if you have your own course, plug it in right away, my friend. Go ahead.
I want to have my own course, but I don't have it yet. I would recommend Joe Dispenza's book, Becoming Supernatural. I really feel like if you can read that book from start to finish and just read it in such a way where you really try to take in everything what he's trying to say, at least most of the stuff that I've said here so far, it should be a little bit more clear. Like he that whole idea of how your negative, again, your thoughts are based on your experiences. Remember, when you experience like something sort of traumatic, again, for me, one of the most traumatic things I was that prostate thing. When that thing, I felt like something burst down there. And then I'm in the washroom. My whole body's like having a panic attack. I remember my legs couldn't stop. They were going like this. I have no control. You're not thinking straight, all that stuff. Just based on that one experience. I mean, the amount of like negative thoughts, I guess, that kind of set into my mind just based on that. Like, oh, I'm a guy that now has panic attacks. I'm a guy that, well, first, I can't sleep on my stomach anymore without this idea that maybe my prostate might have that exploding feeling again. But
Yeah.
You definitely have to just be careful with how, again, those negative thoughts you have during these experiences, because those negative thoughts, they stick, they stay in you. So again, if you could somehow be the person that goes to these experiences and doesn't really give too much, what's the word? Like, you don't give it too much value. You're like, okay, this happened, but I'm gonna go through. I'm gonna go forward. Anyway, like I don't care. Then you're a better off kind of person. You're not a kind of person that took so much in from that event. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
if I was like that, then I wouldn't have had most of the problems that I had. Like I think I put too much. And again, the 20 years of the back pain, that set a precedent for, I'm a guy that I have a bad body. I have a lot of parts of me are bad. And so it wasn't just the back, it was the neck. Like I said, the sciatica, people called me skinny legs. I mean, that's the other interesting thing. It's not even just the things that you tell yourself. It's the things that also people tell you.
Yeah, you're
If
assigning
you
it
can if you can
value
have
is what
this
you're saying.
underlying thought from since you're a kid that says, some adults or parents would teach you, oh, don't worry about what other kids say. Don't worry what other people say. And if you're the kind of person that can believe that doesn't matter what people say, it doesn't have any effect on me, kind of thing. Apparently, I guess I wasn't like that, because let me tell you, like when people called me hunchback, people called me skinny legs, they called me skinny in general because I was a tall, lanky guy. Lanky. These words, they stick with you in your subconscious. And let me tell you, like, I've meditated the word small and skinny out of my mind. I literally used to be like this stick, and then I wish I could show my back now on this call, but it's definitely not like a stick anymore. It's crazy how just like the muscles just sort of came back and they surround my spine in like the more ideal way. Before, everything was all screwed up, just based on
Right.
thoughts. It's crazy.
It would be interesting if there's a way to like measure the before and after, or maybe we could do that in another segment. So like, I guess the advice, like the one takeaway someone could start practicing tomorrow, what would that be? Like, and then we can call it a day.
Again, start with reading that book so you get at least an understanding of how this all works. But something you could practice right away when it comes to meditation, figure out what it is that, like, I don't know, for people listening, maybe it's not even a body problem. Maybe it's just, I'm anxious with work stuff, meetings with my manager, or could be something to do with the family or whatever it happens to be. You have to almost realize, what is it that you actually want to change? Like, what is it that you want to, like, when you see yourself in the future, what is it that you want to see? Like, this, you obviously want to change something. So what is this change? And can you find ways to sort of see that future as being true, like this new positive future? How can I change things now to make that positive future true? And you have to almost search when you almost, and that's the other part about the meditation. I always talk to you about the you know envisioning, or like you actually like sort of envisioning these future events. You want to like envision these future events where, you know when I am in this future event, I don't have that anxiety. And so you have to almost do that. Well, if I don't have anxiety, then what has to be true? You have to almost, and yeah, it's good to get a piece of paper and you write down, like, what are all the thoughts that you must have that would make it true that you have anxiety in these events. And then how can I now negate those thoughts? How can I kind of find like these new positive thoughts that would almost negate all the negative ones? And you have to find a way to believe the positive ones, and then you will not have anxiety in those future events.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a good takeaway for anyone listening and myself included. So I put the name of the book at the bottom, scrolling there, Becoming Supernatural. I'll put a link in the show notes. And I think we definitely got to get you back on for a more of like, let's try out a meditation together or something, or like maybe something more documented you have that we could talk about example by example. So let's do that next time.
Well, actually, before we go though, just to give you like a more sort of personal live example, like
Yeah.
I could just, like these days, I don't really feel anxiety much, but when I do, it's telling me that there's still something I have not yet sort of meditated on, because I've sort of meditated on this idea that I don't get sort of anxiety or worry about anything. Like that's my goals. I don't want to be the kind of guy that gets worried, or that feeling in your stomach, that feeling in your chest, that's almost, the kind of tense feeling because of some kind of situation. So while we're doing this talk, I can tell you like I'm feeling something, and that tells me like I've always been like a shy guy. I never like doing presentations. Never like being in front of people. It extends even to the point of talking. I never felt like I was a good talker. So after this call, like it makes me realize I want to almost like it's almost like be almost like a fly on the wall, looking back at you and I having this talk, and think about all the thoughts of like, okay, so I'm sitting on this chair, I'm talking with my buddy about this meditation stuff. Again, I've always been the guy in the past that didn't like to talk. I never thought I was a good talker or a good storyteller. I'm not good at talking about my life or something like that. Uh, just the idea that, oh, maybe people are going to be watching this, maybe, and what are they going to think? They're judging me. These are all thoughts that I definitely have always had all my life for whatever reason. Like it extends back to like grade 2, doing maybe a quick little book report or whatever in front of the class, and maybe kids laugh at you, and all of a sudden that already starts the negative thoughts already. Then they stick there for your life, unfortunately.
I think I've heard about this. It's called like labeling, right? So you're being mindful of it, so you can see it happening or feel it happening, and then you assign a thing to it, like this makes me feel like that.
Yeah.
And then if you're able to kind of dispel it or put it aside or resolve it, then you feel less cluttered. And I think you're someone who does this quite often, is like clearing clutter, purging it, assigning it a spot, putting it in a spot. But when you let anxiety run rampant, you're stuck.
Yes.
You're stuck in that kind of highway of busy traffic of thoughts, right? So
Yeah.
that's interesting. That's something that literally you've got to be mindful of, and that's what meditation practices are. I'm not an expert myself. I've just been researching it. That's why I wanted to have you on, and I think a lot of people could benefit from this conversation or even follow up with you on it. So I'm looking forward to what you develop next, maybe your own channel on talking about this, but I'm going to give it a shot too. Maybe give that book another shot. Another shot. I had the audio, but be quite honest, I forgot some of it already. So it takes
Even me,
practice, right?
I almost want to reread it myself, just based on like, because when I read it, I was learning it for the first time. Now I feel like, in my mind at least, maybe I'm not the best at explaining things, but at least in my mind, I feel like I understand this stuff quite well. So I would almost want to like reread it, just to almost really fine tune all these ideas like in my head of how all this stuff works. Again, I know I feel I know how it works, but when I explain it, I might not be explaining it the best possible way. But let me just tell you, when I did sort of tell you about, yeah, maybe I am nervous having this talk, and just almost kind of bringing it out loud in sort of what do you call it, like a vulnerable way. You're
Yeah.
being sort of vulnerable. You're letting people know. I did feel that feeling sort of dissipate a little bit. I can tell you that right now. Like that's another thing I find about anxiety. It's like we're always trying to avoid this thought almost so much. We're scared of it. But that's like the last thing I would ever want to have told someone when I give a presentation, that I'm scared that I'm doing this presentation. But like now, I feel like it's very almost healing when you sort of just let it all out. Just kind of you say it out loud. It gets rid of these things in your body.
That's a
These
good
bad things.
slogan for your YouTube channel. Just let it all out on Justin's podcast.
Yeah, as long as you're not farting along with it.
Well, yeah, you feel free to speak on Bubcast. You can speak all you want, feel comfortable here. But anyways, appreciate you sharing that and bringing your insights. I'm glad we finally had this chat, and
Okay.
let's do a part 2. Let's do a part 2 for sure. Okay, man.
Part two.
Thanks. See
Okay.
you later. I'm gonna
Thanks.
end
Thank you.
recording.